Dependency is a powerful thing. And for any relationship to be healthy, the power dynamic between the people in the relationship has to be somewhat balanced. Because when one person has more power over another person, it's usually a matter of time before the imbalance shows itself, and then one person feels like they're somehow submissive or they have to appease the other party, and it starts to create that toxicity. But even in a relationship where both people are healthy, this imbalance can create issues. Of course, the issues are not so severe when the person who has more power is a narcissist. But anytime there is this imbalance, people would say, yeah, there are certain things that surface because of that imbalance that isn't great. But when it comes to the narcissistic relationship, so narcissists are very dependent on their supply, on the person who keeps them balanced. And the reason is simply that narcissists cannot self regulate very well. Some narcissists struggle to self regulate at all. And what that means is they need somebody else in their vicinity, their partner, their primary supply, whatever you want to call it, to keep them regulated. And the way they do that is they project upon that person. They get that person to become their puppet, to basically stroke their needs on a moment by moment basis. That's what a good supply does. But here's the thing, narcissists being dependent on that person. Narcissists hate the idea that they are dependent on anybody. And they cannot accept that, and they certainly cannot accept that the other person knows that the narcissist is dependent on them. And for that reason, narcissists try their hardest when they're with somebody new who's becoming their supply to flip the dynamic and to make that other person dependent on them. So narcissists are experts. They have a whole life experience of trying to make people dependent on them. And they usually do that through that kind of addictive feeling that people feel towards them, that trauma bond, which is, the result of a long, long toxic process of push pull, you know, praise, punish, reward, abuse. It's just that cycle that kind of gets people into that trauma bond where they feel addicted to the narcissist in a way where they strangely can't let the narcissist go, even though the narcissist is abusive and toxic towards them. So narcissists do that because they're overcompensating for the fact they actually do have a dependency on that person. So they're trying to get that person more dependent on them. That's how the narcissist rolls. It's a game of overcompensation. Everything the narcissist does is trying to overcompensate. It's like whatever they feel, they're trying to project that feeling onto the other person, but they're trying to make that other person feel it even more. So, but the thing is, it's hard work for the narcissist to keep the supply in exactly the position that they need them. Because it's an ongoing monitoring process to see where the person is. Because sometimes people are just fed up, they've had enough. They don't want to play ball anymore, or maybe they've seen the light, or maybe one of their peers has talked sense into them. There are infinite reasons that why people reach that point where they say enough is enough. I'm not going to hang around with the narcissist anymore. So for the narcissist to keep that person around in that position of providing perfect supply, it's a lot of hard work. But it pays off because it keeps the narcissist balanced. Because as long as they have that person fulfilling their needs, then they can kind of go about their day-to-day activities, and they can just, get by as narcissists do. But when the narcissist loses control or loses their leverage, loses their grip on their primary supply, that's an awful, terrifying feeling for the narcissist, because that person is the only thing standing between the narcissist and their own self-destruction. Because, again, without that person whom the narcissist can release their negative projections upon, they can entice that person to stroke the narcissist's ego when the narcissist needs to feel grandiose, so on and so forth. When that person's not around for that anymore, the narcissist can't get their needs met. They have no one to release their toxicity onto. They have no one there to make them feel special, because the average person on the street, an average friend who's kind of healthy, they won't make you feel grandiose because normal interactions between normal people is just like a natural give and take. People aren't there to make you feel on top of the world. That's why narcissists need to seek out special supply, who are quite damaged, quite have their own CPTSD, which means that they're capable of falling into that narcissistic dynamic where they supply the narcissist in that way. But normal, healthy people wouldn't do that. So when the narcissist doesn't have these traumatized people there who are their partners, their primary supplies, and they only have like normal people who they kind of witness around them, and those normal people obviously can't supply the narcissist because they're healthy and they won't they're just not fit out for that. Then the narcissist has to live with their own toxicity. They has to live with their own inner demons. They have to accept that they're not as special as they would like to feel. I mean, so on. And that's like the worst thing the narcissist can feel, because they're feeling just like they're nothing. And any hint that they're just a normal human being, or even less than, they can't accept that. So then the narcissist, of course, they panic, and then they obviously the first impulse they have is to try to get that primary supply back, because once the primary supply is gone, they realize, oh shit. And sometimes they might have a replacement here or there. Okay, sometimes that's the bridge that keeps them going, but that doesn't last much either. But when they lose the primary supply without a replacement in order, then they just can't have it. They need to find a way to get that person back. That they must, because they don't self-regulate otherwise. They temporarily sometimes go on to other friends or other family members trying to get bits and pieces of supply here, bits and pieces of supply there, but it doesn't really cut it. It doesn't really sustain them. It's like trying to stop a freight train with a BB gun kind of analogy. It doesn't really work, but they, of course, when they're trying to survive, they're trying to, they're kind of gasping for air, if you would. They will try to grab at anything that might give them a little bit of relief. But putting all that aside, the narcissist is forced to think, they have to hunt for somebody who is capable of performing the role that you once did. And that can take months or years. It's not easy to find that kind of person. The narcissists are always looking for the person with the perfect core wounds, the perfect set of complex post-traumatic stress disorder manifestations in themselves, or symptoms rather, traits, features. They're trying to find the perfectly damaged person who will submit themselves to the ongoing, steady, toxic, and abuse cycle which the narcissist will inevitably put upon them. That takes a long time. That takes a long time, especially since there are many narcissists out there, and they're kind of competing for the same traumatized people out there. It's like a market between the abusers and then the wounded. Where the abusers, who are also wounded, they're looking for other wounded who are willing to be submissive. And it takes a long time. It's never guaranteed. So that's why the narcissist sometimes can't help but try to find a way to get back into your life. Because they need to bring you back in. They need to have some kind of power over you again. Because unless they can have some kind of power over you, they have no power over themselves. They have no control over themselves. They control themselves through controlling you. That is the long and the short of a narcissistic relationship. They're using you to get their needs met. They're using you to have some semblance of control over themselves. Anyway, I hope some of you found this helpful, and I will leave it at that. Take care. Bye-bye.